We continue now at the top of Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis in Meseches Megillah. This is Megillah Daf 13b. The Gemara here continues with Rebbe Lozer's statement. He says, what does the pasuk mean when it says in Sefer Iyov, Lo Yigra Mitzadik Einov, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't take his eyes off of the tzaddik? It means to say as follows: B'schar tznius shahaisa ba b'Rachel, because of the modesty that Rachel had, Zachsa v'yatsa mimena Shaul, she merited that Shaul came out from her. Uveschar tznius shahaya bo b'Shaul, and because of the modesty that Shaul had, Zacha v'yatz mimenu Esther, came out from him. He merited that it came out from him, Esther. Umay tznius haisa ba b'Rachel. What was the tznius by Rachel? Dechsiv, because the pasuk says, Vayaged Yaakov l'Rachel ki achi aviyahu. It says that Yaakov told to Rachel that he was the brother of her father. Gemara says, V'chi achi aviyahu, was he really the brother of her father? V'halo ben achos aviyahu, really, he was the son of the sister of her father. Elo amar lo, but rather what it means is as follows. He said to her, Minsavali, marry me. Amar le, she said to him, yes, I'll marry you. Miu, however, Abba Ramohu, my father is a Ramai. He's somebody who is an individual who can't be trusted. V'lo yecholtle, you're not going to be able to beat him in this area. Amar lo, he said to her, Achiv ana beramos. That's why he says Achiv over here. He said to her, I am his brother when it comes to Ramos. I'm also able to cheat. Amar le, she said to him, Umishari letzadike lesaguye beramusa. Is it permitted for tzadikim, for a righteous person like you, to engage in cheating? Amar lo, said to her, in yes, im novar titavar v'imikesh titapol. If you're dealing with somebody who is pure, you should act purely with them. If you're dealing with somebody who is corrupt, you should act with them in the same manner. Amar lo, said to her, umay ramusa. What does he intend to do? In what way does he intend to act as a ramai? Amar le, she said to him, isli achsa dekshishim minoi. She said, I have a sister that's older than me. V'lo minsiv li mikamo. He's not going to marry me off before he marries her off. So Masar lo simonim. So he gave to Rachel some simonim, some signs, so that he would be able to know whether it was her and not Leah. However, the Gemara says, Ki mata lelia, when that night came, the night of the wedding, Amra, she said, Hashta michsafa achsai. Now my sister's going to be embarrassed. She's going to go with Yaakov. She's not going to have the proper signs, and she'll be embarrassed. So Masartino nehila. So therefore Rachel gave to Leah the signs. And that's what the pasuk means when it says, Vahiva boker vihinehi Leah. It was in the morning, and behold, it was Leah. Mechlal dat hashta lav Leah. Does that mean to imply that until now it wasn't Leah? Elamitoch simonin shemasara Rachel Leah, but rather because of the signs that Rachel gave to Leah, lo hava yad dat hashta. He didn't realize, or he didn't know until now, that it was actually Leah. Lefikach, therefore, zachsa v'yatsa mimena Shaul. That's why she merited that Shaul came out from her. Umat tznius haisa b'Shaul, and what was the tznius, the modesty by Shaul? Techsiv, because the pasuk says, Ves devar hamalucha lo higidlo. He didn't tell him about the fact that he was going to be king. Asher amar Shmuel, that Shmuel said that was a modest thing not to reveal that. So zacha v'yatsa mimenu Esther. So he merited, and Esther came out from him. And the Gemara continues, V'yomer Rebbe Lozer, and Rebbe Lozer says, Kisha HaKadosh Baruch Hu posek gedula la'adam, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that greatness will be to a person, posek levana v'levnei vana vatsof kol hadoros. That greatness is given to his children and all of his generations, all of his descendants until the end of the generations. Shenamar, like it says, Vayoshivim lo netzach ve'igbeyu. Again, the same idea, forever he raised them up. But if the person becomes arrogant, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mashpilo, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes him down. Shenamar, like the pasuk says, v'masurim bezikim v'gomer. It says if they're bound in chains. Pasuk goes on to talk about somebody who is haughty. The Gemara continues. The pasuk says, "Vesmamar Mordechai Esther Osa." It said that Esther did what Mordechai said. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says, "Shahai Samara dam nida lechachamim." What does that mean? It means that she used to show the blood of her nida. She used to show it to the chachamim in order to determine what the halachic status was. And the Gemara continues, Kasher Haisa ba'amna ito, as she did when she was with him, meaning when she was with Mordechai. Amar Rav bar Lima mishmei de Rav. So Rav bar Lima says in the name of Rav, Shahaisa omedes mecheko shel Achashverosh. She would get up from the lap of Achashverosh, v'toveles v'yosheves becheko shel Mordechai, and then she would immerse herself, cleanse herself, and she would sit in the lap of Mordechai. And the Gemara continues, by Yom Mohim, in those days, Mordechai Yoshe B'Shar HaMelech, Mordechai would sit by the gate of the king. Katzaf, Bigson, V'Seresh, Bigson and Seresh, who were servants of Achashverosh, they got angry and they made a plot to poison the king. Amar Rabbi Chiya bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chiya bar Abba says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Hiksif HaKadosh Baruch Hu Adon al Avodav Lasos Ritzon Tzadik Umanu Yosef. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a master get angry at his servants in order to do the will of the Tzadik, referring to Yosef. Who are we referring to? Yosef. Shenamar, like the pasuk says, "V'shamitanu nar ivri v'gomer." With us was a nar ivri. In other words, The story over there with the butler and the baker who were put into jail with Yosef, how did that happen? Because a master, meaning Paro, got angry at his servants and he threw them in jail, and that helped Yosef. And furthermore, Rabbi Yochanan continues, Avodim al Adonai, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make servants angry with their master. La'asos neis l'tzadik, that's in order to make a miracle for the tzaddik. Umanu, and who is the tzaddik we are referring to? Mordechai, we are referring to Mordechai. Dechsiv, like the pasuk says, Vayivada hadavar l'Mordechai v'gomer. Mordechai found out the plot, and that's of course how Mordechai was raised up, because he revealed the plot to Achashverosh. And the Gemara now explains, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Bigson v'Seresh, Shnei Tarsiyim havu. Bigson and Seresh, they were both Tarsiyim. Vayimasaprim b'lashon Torsi, and they spoke that language. They spoke the language of Torsi. V'yomrim miyom shabasa zu lo ra'inu sheina beinenu. And they said, they used to complain, from the time that this woman Esther has come to the king Achashverosh, we haven't been able to sleep. There's too many demands on us. Bavanatil eris basafal. Let's go. We'll put some poison into the basin. Kadesha yamis. We'll put some into his drink, and that way he'll die. But they didn't know that Mordechai used to sit in the chamber of hewn stone, meaning he used to sit with the Sanhedrin. Like other members of the Sanhedrin, he knew all 70 languages. He could understand what they were saying. Amar lo, he said to him, meaning this is Bigson and Seresh talking to each other, but my watch and your watch are not the same. So how are we going to be able, how is one of us going to be able to get away in order to set up the poison against the king? Amar lo, so the other one said back to him, Ani eshmor mishmarti umishmartcha, I'll do a double shift. I'll take your shift and my shift. You'll have a chance to go and poison the king. And that's what the pasuk says, that they saw it, they checked into it, and they found out that Mordechai was right, that there was a plot against the king. How did they discover this? Shelo nimtzu b'mishmartan, meaning they weren't found. They saw that somebody was covering a double shift. One of them wasn't available at their shift, and that showed that Mordechai was correct. And the Gemara continues, Achar hadvarim ha'ela, after these events, meaning after Mordechai was raised up, so then Haman raised up, and you had the decree against the Jewish people. And the Gemara explains, Amar Rava says, Achar shebara HaKadosh Baruch Hu refuah l'Makkah. It means to say, after the healing was already created, before the Makkah, before the plague, HaKadosh Baruch Hu always creates the healing first, and that's when the decree came. The Amar Reish Lakish, because Reish Lakish says, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Makkes Yisrael Emkein Bori Lehem Refuah Tchila. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not hit Klal Yisrael unless he first creates the refuah in the beginning. Shenamar, like the pasuk says, Kerafi li Yisrael v'nigla avon Ephraim. It talks about the healing before the avon Ephraim, before the sin of Ephraim is revealed. Avalumo sa'od lemeino came, but when it comes to the nations of the world, it's not this way. Mako son, first he hits them, v'yachakach bori lehem refuah, and only after that does he create the refuah. Shenamar, like the pasuk says, v'nagav Hashem es Mitzrayim nagof v'rafo. Again, it talks about the fact that nagaf, that there's a plague against them, and then it talks about the healing. Vayivez be'einav l'shloach yad b'Mordechai levado. It says that Haman, he didn't want to only attack Mordechai, he wanted to attack the entire nation of Mordechai. Amar Rava says b'tchila b'Mordechai, originally b'Mordechai levado. Originally he wanted to only attack Mordechai. Ulevasof ba'am Mordechai umanu rabbanon. Then he wanted to attack the nation of Mordechai. That's a reference to who? To the rabbanon. Ulevasof b'chol ha'Yehudim. But then he wanted to attack all of the Jews. Pasuk then says, Hipel pur hu agorol. He drew a lottery. Tana was taught, Kevan shenafal pur b'chodesh Adar. When the lottery came out in the month of Adar, Samach simcha gedola. He had a great happiness, great celebration. Amar, he said, Nafali pur b'yerech shemeis bo Moshe. The lottery fell out in the month that Moshe Rabbeinu died. It's a good sign for me. V'lohaya yodea shebeshiva ba'adar meis uveshiva ba'adar nolad. But he did not know that Moshe Rabbeinu died in Adar, but he was also born in Adar. On the 7th of Adar he died, and on the 7th of Adar he was born. And the pasuk continues, Yeshno am echad, there's one nation, and this is what Haman is describing to Achashverosh, all of the bad things about the Jewish people. Amar Rava says, Leka diyada lishna bishak Haman. There's no one who knew how to speak Lashon Hara about the Jewish people like Haman. Amar Le, he said to him, Ta nechlinu, come let's destroy them. Amar Le said to him, Mistapina me'alokov. I'm afraid of its God. I'm afraid of the God of Israel. The loli avid bi, kido avid bekamoy. I don't want him to do against me like he did against the earlier ones. Amar Le said to him, Yeshno min mitzvahs. He said, no, they're sleeping from the mitzvahs. They're not doing mitzvahs. Their God is not going to protect them. Amar Le, so he said to him, Yisbuhu rabbanim, but don't they have sages who do the mitzvahs? Amar Le said to him, Am echad hein. They're all one nation. They're all the same. And therefore it doesn't matter about the rabbanim. They're all not doing mitzvahs. They're not going to be saved by their God. Shema Tomer Korchan Yosef Malchuscha. But then Haman said, maybe you'll say I'm making like a bald spot in your kingdom. If we eliminate so many Jews, it's like you have a whole area that's going to be uninhabited. That's not a problem. He said, Mefuzarn hein bein ha'amim. They're scattered amongst the nations. It's not going to create an area that's uninhabited. Shematomer, maybe you'll say, Ishanominayu, that there's some kind of benefit we get from them being around. So the answer is meforad. It says they're spread out, but we darshan kipreda, they're like a mule. Kipreda zu she'eno saperos. They're like a mule that doesn't produce any fruits, and therefore that we get no benefit from them. V'shematomer, maybe you'll say, Ika medinta minayu. Maybe there's a whole province filled with them. And again, we don't want to empty the province. Talmud Lomar v'chol medinos malchusecha. The pasuk says, no, they're scattered through all the medinos. V'daseyem shonos mikolam, and their laws are different from all other nations. What does that mean? Delo achli minon, they don't eat from us, they don't eat our food. V'lo nasvi minon, they don't marry our women. V'lo menasvi lon, and they don't give their women to us to marry. V'esdase hamelech ein amosim, and they don't follow the laws of the king. What does that mean? The mavgi lekula shasa b'shehi pehi means to say that the whole year they're able to get out of doing work with shehi and pehi. What that refers to is with Shabbos and Pesach, meaning they have all kinds of Shabbos and Yomim Tovim, all kinds of days that they can't work. V'lamelech ein shave lahanicham, and to the king it's not worth leaving them. Ta'achlu v'shasum mevazule. Why not? Because they eat and drink, and it's a disgrace to the king. Umevazule lamalchus, they disgrace the kingdom. And what's an example of that? Va'afilu nofel zuvuv b'koso shalachan mehan. Let's say even that a fly would come into one of their cups, into their drinks. Zarko v'shoseu, they take the fly, they throw it out, they continue to drink. V'madoni hamelech nogea b'koso shalachan mehan. But if my master the king would touch one of their cups of wine, chovto b'karka ve'eno shoseu. The halacha is that if a non-Jew touches the wine, it becomes not kosher, they would throw it to the ground and they wouldn't drink it. It's an insult to the king. And Rashi over here explains, Vesdose hamelech ein amosim, they don't do the law of the king. Ungarios, umasim, v'gulgolios, varnonos, ein amnosim. It means to say the various taxes that are collected from the king, they don't participate in. And demafki leila shasa b'shehi pehi, what does that mean? Shabbos hayom, they have excuses. Today's Shabbos. Pesach hayom, today's Pesach. V'yanu asurim b'malacha, we can't do any work. They don't do any work anyway. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says, Im ala melech tov yikosev li'abdam, if it's good to the king, let's write out that we should destroy them. V'yasoras halofim kikar kesef v'gomer, and let's weigh out a certain amount of kesef, a certain amount of silver. And the Gemara explains, Amar Reish Lakish says, it was clear and revealed to the one who created the world, to the one who spoke and created the world, meaning it was clear to the Ribono Shel Olam, that in the future Haman would weigh shkolim against Klal Yisrael. That's the idea of this pasuk, collecting shkolim, weighing shkolim to destroy Klal Yisrael. Lafigach, therefore, hiktim shiklei and l'shkolav. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu set it up that the shekel that the Jewish people give, that they donate to the Beis HaMikdash, what we call the Machatzis HaShekel, that will precede the shkolim of Haman. V'hainu d'tanan, that's what the Mishnah says. Bi'echad ba'adar, already on the first of Adar, mashmiyan ala shkolim v'ala kilayim. That's when we make announcements about the shkolim, the collecting of the shkolim, the machatzis hashekel, and also about kilayim. That's when things begin to grow from the earth, and you have problems of kilayim. So we announce that people should be careful to take out any plants that might be kilayim. And so again, the point is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sets up that our shkolim precede the shkolim of Haman, and that's how we are saved. And the Gemara continues, Vayomer HaMelech LaHaman HaKesef Nasan Lach. The king says to Haman, I'm going to give you the money. V'yom lasos bo katov beinech, and do to the nation whatever you want to do. Amar Rabbi Abba says and explains, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Daled Amud Aleph.